All right, welcome everyone back to the Visibility Era podcast. We are here today with another awesome guest, Jackie Tempera. Welcome, Jackie, to the show.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
We're excited to talk to you today because you really come at this angle of visibility from both perspectives. You're an award-winning journalist, you're a writer for women's health, and you also understand the magic of storytelling and how helping women tell their story will actually help them attract clients and get media attention. So we're really excited to take both of those aspects in our conversation with you today. And I think where we should begin is, how the heck did you get into this work in the first place? How did you start writing? Like, what came first here?
Yeah, so I've always loved writing. I was definitely like the girl who had like like a little notebook of poems or whatever I was writing about, like whatever boy borrowed my marker at school or whatever, what have you. So uncovering those has been a lot of fun. But I had to write a book report on someone when I was like 8, and I picked Oprah Winfrey because she was about the coolest person I could ever imagine. She got to talk to people and ask them whatever questions she wanted. She had this whole like glamorous setup. So I was like, okay, cool. That's what I'll do. So, very confident little girl. And I realized that she was a news reporter. So that's sort of where journalism was introduced into my life. I grew up in a household where my parents never watched the news at all. So it wasn't really something that was in my awareness. So reading this biography, and I wish like I could remember even what it was, like who wrote it, like totally blew my mind as a kid. And I just was like very singularly focused on becoming a journalist and someone successful as Oprah, or someone who had their own talk show. So that obviously shifted a little bit as I got older, and I truly just fell in love with journalism. And again, like I was right on when I was reading that bio. I love talking to people. I love asking people questions and really getting to the heart of what they're about. And it is a unique skill of mine that I've come to hone and recognize over my career. I've been a reporter since, I mean, formally since I'm about 16. Informally since I was 9. I had my own newspaper called the Puppy Press. um,
Tell
um,
us more.
yeah, it was really, really hard-hitting stuff. Everybody wants to be a dog was the my little play.
Mhm.
And everyone's like, Jackie, that's supposed to be cat. And I'm like, you don't understand my brain. But anyway, yeah, so I always loved writing and reporting, even if it was like about like my neighbor being weird or like my dog or whatever it was that I was writing about. So that kind of naturally propelled me. I went to a specialty high school here in New Jersey that was focused on communications and journalism, and then studied that in college, and then was really just off to the races. I started writing for the Boston Globe and the Providence Journal after graduating. I did a lot of courts and crime and breaking news stories, and eventually just reached a point where it got to be too depressing for me, dealing in that subject matter all day, every day. I knew it was important work that I was doing to be going and covering, a shooting that happened the night before in Boston or something of that nature. But I'm very sensitive, and it became really challenging for me. So I ended up feeling very burnt out and sort of taking a step back. And in that step back, was able to again recognize that there is a commonality here, and it doesn't have to be me burning myself out by writing 15 breaking news stories a day. My gift actually can be better used when I am in a regulated place and can help women share their stories on their own terms. So that's where I invented Story Magic, which is my signature storytelling framework to really help women who own businesses, particularly founders, share their story in compelling and new ways to, like you said, attract those dream clients, those media opportunities, and get some visibility.
Yeah, Jackie, thank you so much for sharing that. Like, what a breath of fresh air. Because I also have been in media for, I mean, not 16, so you got some years on me, but for about 10 years. And I started in the music industry, and I still love music to this day, but it burnt me the fuck out, to be completely
Yeah.
honest with you. And so this kind of leads me to my next question of, you really stood out to me. I email what, like a bajillion writers a day. And I follow them all on Instagram and I know what they're doing. And that's just like a part of the PR life. I always joke around that we are like socially acceptable stalkers, basically.
Same.
But it's
Percent.
same.
Hard
And
to
that's just
stop.
like, yeah, just like what we do. But what really stood out to me is like you not only write about a lot of wellness, which is great because a lot of my clients are in the wellness space and even in visibility on purpose, but I saw you like really practicing what you preach. And like, I just love everything you're doing with Story Magic. I saw that you're doing yoga and I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if you know this, but Bridget is a Kundalini yoga instructor. And so,
Oh.
yeah, there's just so much crossover. So I want to ask you, like, where did your love of wellness really come into play? And did you kind of start writing about it and that sparked your curiosity? Or was it more about like, I need to regulate myself, this is my interest, and then like pitching to maybe women's health and then starting to be a regular writer there?
That is a really excellent question, and I don't know that anyone has ever asked me that before. So thank you,
Of
Lydia.
course.
Um, I so super jazzed to hear you're a Kundalini yoga instructor. Gonna have to come and take a class. I got my 200-hour yoga teacher training last year, and I feel like I'm definitely more in my like wellness era, my wellness journey now, but I would say it started probably around the time where I was talking about where I felt just so burnt out from this job that like, as I'm sharing with you, it's something that I held in my heart since I was a little girl. So to reach this sort of pinnacle that you've been imagining since you're 8 and then be like, oh, but it's not right. It's not fitting. I don't feel good. The work that I'm doing is important, but it's not like lighting me up anymore. To reach that point was really scary. And that came at a time where I was also facing a lot of sexual harassment in the workplace. And on top of that, I also was sexually assaulted. So just a absolute shitstorm of events all happening to me at once at 24. So it really to be completely frank, just really knocked me on my ass. And I didn't know which way was up and which way was down. And this like really like hard charging girl that I have been my whole life, I didn't feel like she was with me anymore. So I really had to go through this process of learning what works for me, learning how to stop relying on it, adrenaline and accomplishments and climbing up this ladder that I had imagined for myself when I was, a different person, and really focus on, like I said, like nervous system regulation, coming back home into my body and practicing all of these things. So I think that when I started my career as a journalist, I always loved fashion and wellness and astrology and all of these like more girly quote unquote topics. But I had kind of gaslit myself into thinking that it was stupid and I should be focused on something more serious. So I think this whole journey has brought me back to the things that I really do love and has shown me that there is such tremendous power in writing about these wellness topics because people look towards wellness and look towards these things like yoga, breath work. I'm trying to become Reiki certified this year, things of that nature. They look for them when they're in a dark spot, and that's when I found wellness to be a really important part of my life. So I think that it kind of happened naturally, but it really illuminated to me the importance of taking care of oneself after years of not doing that.
Oh, yeah. I always say that normally people don't find themselves into this alternative health, wellness, mental health space because they want to. Like, normally it's because of some sort of internal challenge that led them there, and it's like, this is the only solution, and it's such a gift that we find ourselves there. I wish we didn't have to go through the challenge to arrive there, but alas, we're all here. Um,
Yeah.
you as a writer and a reporter, what are the types of pieces that you're loving, putting out content towards? What pitches are you loving getting these days? Like, what are the topics that you are just like, I want more of?
Another great question. So I know, like in the wellness world, you mean?
Yes, I mean,
Yeah.
In
it could
general?
go further, yeah.
So wellness, I'm just like really into skincare. I'm like a very like like we'll talk like lightest fare, really into skincare at the moment. I'm pitching a couple of things around that just because I've been on my own skincare journey and
Mhm.
learning about different products that can really like help people like gain more confidence because I think skin and appearance in that way can be a big thing. And I also think that's like very trendy right now. I also am, oh, I'm not going to remember the name of the brand, which is such a bummer, but they do these Reiki infused skin like masks. And I feel like Reiki infused skincare is really like about to be a big thing. I had never heard of it and I'm like woo woo witch to the max. So I was shocked. Oh man, I know Heidi Klum did them. They're wonderful. They sent me the products. They're awesome. I
You
wish
know
I
it. Lydia, do you know it? I see you like
So I'm
thinking.
laughing because when I did beauty PR a million bajillion years ago,
Mhm.
uh, we had this brand called Crystal Hills from
Okay.
Canada, and they did Reiki infused skincare. And that was one of the first times I'd heard about Reiki. And LOL, to a few years later, I'm Reiki 1 certified. My boyfriend's moms
Oh,
are a Reiki master.
oh
But
man, I love this. I love this synchronicity that's happening here.
full
Um,
circle.
well, I'll tag the brand on my story because I do love it and I don't want to spend too much time digging in my brain for it. But
Yeah.
I like pitches like that. And then I truly just like more to like the side of my business. Any woman that's like really or any person, I shouldn't say just woman. I primarily work with women, but any person that is passionate who is like I know that this thing that I'm doing is the best thing in the world, even if it's not to me, even if it's something that I'm like, okay, maybe I'm going to pass on this one. It's about like a UTI supplement or something. If the person's passionate and fiery about it and like telling me their story, like that cuts through no matter what. So I think that's the main message I would give to anyone pitching themselves. Like, yeah, I'll have my moment when I'm into Reiki infused skincare, or I'm really into like astrology books, or I'm pitching a lot about like travel. But the thing that always cuts through is people who are passionate and people who truly are like riding hard for themselves and their ideas.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to hear about how you started. I was listening to one of your reels on Instagram that was like storytelling is the best asset we could have, and I was like preach, preach, preach. So I would love to hear like how this kind of idea came to be. Obviously, you're a natural amazing storyteller, but like what sparked the idea of like, oh, maybe I should teach other people how to do this. This is so important.
Yeah, so thank you for saying I'm an amazing storyteller. I did not always feel that way, which is a lot of the reason why I created this in particular offer. So with Story Magic, I really sit down, I interview the founders and like dig into their background. It's like we're talking about your high school prom, we're talking about your breakup. We're getting into like what your mom did to you when you were a little girl. Whatever, like we're getting into all the details and I really go deep like that to get people in this sort of like conversational state because I think as soon as we're told to introduce ourselves it brings this like absolute freeze response. And as someone who is a talker, you know, I've been talking before I could walk, I never shut up. um I found myself just completely like gobsmacked trying to introduce myself to people, especially when I started to run my own business. It was easy for me to say, oh, I'm a journalist and I work for XYZ publication and I write about politics, right? Like that's easy to say, easy to explain. To explain to like, I was at a this is really where Story Magic started. I was at my cousin's anniversary party and a relative came up to me and said, oh, your daddy told us about your little website. It's so amazing that you're running this little blog. And I wanted to punch him in the face and say, like, oh, well, I heard about your little doctor's office, or I heard about your little whatever. But I had no response. I was like, well, it's more than that. I do writing, I do marketing, and I just kind of like fumbled over my words and really didn't do myself any justice. And I left that party like, whoa, what the hell was that? If I can't introduce myself to this like random cousin of my dad's, how am I introducing myself to my clients? Like, that's was scary to me. So I really got to work crafting a version of the story that I told you all at the beginning of the podcast, because it feels natural to me. Those are truly like the points that stood out to me in my own life. And then I started really, yeah, I mean, I knew from my own experience, if I'm someone who has been telling stories for a living for, at that point, like close to 10 years or more than 10 years, and I'm struggling to introduce myself, what is going on with people who are running businesses that are not surrounded by communication? How is the jeweler introducing herself? How is like, the Reiki master, the confidence coach, like those people, they're maybe not trained in these things. So that's really where my motivation came from. And yeah, it's so exciting when you can introduce yourself too. I think that there's such a level of confidence and empowerment, and you feel it, right? Like you feel it in the bottom of your stomach, you feel that fire, instead of that panic. And seeing the women that go through the VIP offer and through my group coaching really go from that, like, I do this and I write sometimes and I make art and I do whatever, but it's not a big deal, to be like, no, like I am the best artist in my area. It's like, it gives me chills right now. It's like my favorite thing on earth.
Let me just say, like, you are our person. I have never heard something so aligned in my life. I'm like, yes, yes,
No,
yes.
I feel the same way with you ladies too. It's just like, yeah, I was so excited when I like, because we knew each other from our, I don't know if you want to call it day jobs, but our like
Yeah.
journalism and PR, sure, work. And then once I started seeing the work that you were doing on your own Instagram, I was like, oh, she's so sick. Like, I love this. Like, this is so fun. Like, I love when people really take something that they know so well, like you two do with PR, and bring it to other people in like a way that they can really use. I think that's such a beautiful gift and something that's really empowering to all of the people you touch.
Gosh, thank you. Um, I have a question for you. So, like, of course, but
Yeah,
so
you do.
yeah, yeah, it's okay. If it's okay, I'm just gonna raise my hand. So when people come to you and they say things like, I don't really have a story, like what do you tell them? Because I mean, I know the answer to this, but like, what would you tell them if they come to you and they're like, my story's not that great?
You're wrong. I usually tell them they're wrong.
Prove me wrong.
I'm pretty blunt, but yeah, I think the example that always comes to mind is my own bookkeeper, Ellie. She is a female entrepreneur. She's awesome. She Pathos Bookkeeping. I shout her out all day long. She invested in a story magic session with me, which was so exciting. And she was convinced that she had no connection to bookkeeping. She was like, I just Googled it and then I applied to it one day. Like, she's like, you're not gonna find some like whatever through here. Like, there's nothing behind the surface. And I kept, digging and digging and digging. And then at some point, like in our conversation, she was like, you know what I just remembered? When I was a little girl, I used to make color-coded chore charts and keep track of every time I made my bed and every time I mowed the lawn, and I would get 25 cents per each one. And my brothers never did this, but my mom ended up having to pay me, I think it was something like $100 from all of these chores that she had done over the course of a year. So I was like, excuse me, ma'am. So you're trying to tell me you've been a bookkeeper since you were 5? Like, and that was not going to be interesting to your clients? So I think being that mirror for people, like when something is so second nature to us, like I can tell myself that the story I'm telling you is boring, or I could really believe in it. And I think sometimes it just takes someone to reflect back to you, like, no, that's not boring. That's actually really cool that you had that inclination, because I don't know about you both, but I'm not a color coder. I'm not making a spreadsheet. So when I was 5, I certainly wasn't. And that like is now one of her catchphrases for her business, is like, do you want to hire, a man sitting behind a desk in a blazer, or the girl who's been color coding her chore chart since she's 5? Like, that's like I love that line. Like, I know I wrote it, but it just makes me so excited every time.
I think you hit the nail on the head, though. It is so hard for us to see our own magic when we are just in that silo of showing up for our work, working with clients. Like we're not taking that third perspective and saying, yeah, what am I actually doing here? What initiated, what like sparked this, what informed? And I always see it as like these little puzzle pieces throughout our life. And these little puzzle pieces planted seeds in these like moments and to create this like beautiful tapestry of the work that we're doing now. But it's so important for someone like you to be able to pull that out of the founder because it is very hard for them to move forward, especially, and we see this in Pitch Party, our program. It's very hard for them to be like, okay, let me write a pitch if they don't understand their magic. Like there is that confidence piece to be like, yeah, like what is my thing? Well, how did I get here? And I love that you like there's so much synergy between all of us because you do the same thing. You pull it out, the magic.
Yes, we have to like, yeah, it's crazy. And I love that you both are spiritual too, because I do think that like my spirituality and my like wellness journey has like sharpened my intuition and my ability to really do this work with people in such a huge way. Like, of course, I also got information out of people when I was reporting. But honestly, one of the things that made reporting so difficult for me was that I was always in it with the source. Like if I'm interviewing someone who's family member just passed away in a tragic accident and they're sitting there and crying, the thing that journalism school tells you to do is to like hand them a tissue and keep recording and like keep a stone face. But that's not me. It never was me. Like I would be tearing up with them, not in an inappropriate way in which they would be consoling me, but just showing that I was a human. And I really always had a hard time with the fact that journalism kind of discouraged you from being a human and wanted you to be this like unbiased, like unpartisan robot, because I just don't think that that is like the reality that we are all living in. We all have things that we bring to stories and things and like similar situations that we can draw from that make people more comfortable in sharing rather than just like looking at someone with like a flat expression while you're you know struggling with something. Um,
Yeah.
a lot of my work came from, well, really, I did a lot of work around sexual harassment when I was doing breaking news reporting, and I would share with the women, like, I'm in this with you. Like, this happened to me this morning at work. Like, I know it's happening to you too. And that little bit of like dropping the guard down, which is something I get to do with my clients now constantly because I'm in charge and there's not like some dusty like white guy that's in charge of the newspaper that's yelling at me to like be more quote unquote professional. I know how powerful that is to people. So I think that like that vulnerability is something I'm always encouraging people to really like tap into and just to like believe, even if they don't like totally believe it deep down, like just pretending you do for a little while until it sinks in.
Yeah, and I think even you just discussing like relatability, like just being relatable in so many different areas, like just being somebody who is the person that was color coding their spreadsheets or whatever, their
Yeah.
chore chart when they were a kid, like there's somebody that's going to hear that or read that on the other end and say, oh my God, I wish I knew somebody like that. Or, oh my God, I wish that is me. And that is me. And I can now have the, confidence to go out and say, like, I'm the person that did this. And I think just bringing back the human connection is so important. And Bridget and I, like, we put that at the forefront of our whole entire business. Like, we tell everybody, make relationships with these media experts and like, just like have fun. Like it doesn't have to be that serious. Like let's all have fun and just be human. And it makes, number one, it makes, or two, like that's how the magic works. Like just collaboration and just being human beings. Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm always in favor of being a human being and not being like, I don't know, I talk about this a lot, but I think that we're all told like having an opinion is unprofessional or like being ourselves is quote unquote unprofessional. And I just could not disagree more. The most clients I get are from when I'm posting like the most random things on Instagram about like being behind a lady at Wawa who's buying 4,000 lottery tickets or, learning to cue in yoga and not remembering anything and kind of being like, what the F is this next pose or whatever it is. Like that's where people are coming to me and like DMing me. It's not when I'm posting about, I mean, sometimes it is when I'm posting storytelling resources, but that's what people connect to. And to your point, Lydia, of the color-coded spreadsheets, like any grounding details like that, really, they work on a lot of levels, but they would just work on like a scientific level because I'm sure when anyone heard that detail, you can kind of slot in your own childhood quirky behavior, and it just makes you feel automatically like you know that person and sends you those like hits of dopamine that we all crave as beings. So yes, I did not, like you, color code my spreadsheets, but it reminds me of, you know, writing my poems in my books when I was a little girl, and I'm like, oh, I see this, maybe I don't see this action in myself, but I see this emotion and this drive from this little girl, and now I'm bought in. I trust you.
Yeah, I love that so much. Even you like talking about that, I'm like emotional just thinking about the little things that I used to do as a kid and like what made me feel good and how that's integrated into the work that I do today. So thank you for sharing that. I have a question for you about like what was the first article that kind of went viral that you felt really good about or like got like really high numbers and you were like, "Ooh, like this feels really good."
Oh, that's a oh, I keep saying they're good questions. They really are though.
Thanks.
So this is like not a fun article per se, but like I'm gonna preface it by saying nobody was harmed. It
Okay.
was okay. I did work in breaking news at the time, so the matter was not you know, it wasn't something about Venus retrograde. Let's just say that. So my first, I'll say my first front page story for the Boston Globe, which was like I had been working there like nights and weekends and whenever I was like not at college. Um, you know what? No, we're gonna go back to a student one. Different
Okay.
example. Okay, so young Jackie, I am in high school. I'm like 16. I just became the editor-in-chief of our school newspaper, the Ink Blot, which was like I might as well have been Anna Wintour at the head of Vogue. I was like let's go, like we're like I was like chopping heads, I'm firing people, I'm yelling at people, like I was an absolute tyrant. So my first week of being editor, I'm putting out my first issue, loving it, like so excited. And there was this senior prank at my school where the students, like I said, I went to like a vocational school, so it was much smaller, and we had this like field day basically. But there was a pie eating contest, and the seniors, rather than eating the pies, pied the teachers in their face. So this was like scandal ran through communications high school. And I was like, this is my Watergate. Like, I am getting in on the ground level. We have the photos. I'm interviewing my Spanish teacher about the cost of the damages to her bra. Like, I was just like in the zone. And that was the time, like, I'm not going to say that went viral, maybe within like the four walls of my school, but I felt so powerful. I got to interview my principal and ask him like what the repercussions were going to be. And of course, it was like, it was stupid. It was pieing people in the face, but it was important for the students that got in trouble. You know, I got to ask questions about what would happen, whether their names would be released, whether their colleges would be notified, et cetera, et cetera. And for me, it just showed me that like my excitement and drive towards these things would yield results. And I did, you know, run this big picture that I found from one of the students of like the teachers really getting pied in the face. And I still have that newspaper near my desk at home. But I will say that was like the most exciting like first story that like really had an impact. And I believe I won an award for that at the time, but I'm not remembering because I am now 31 and not 17. But that was very exciting.
I love frame that. Frame that.
My
Yeah, no,
Watergate, like I'm done. Goodbye.
You really are such a great storyteller. And as we start to wrap it out, I would love to hear, like, just hear some of your best tips. How do you tell such good stories? How are you getting us emotionally connected? I'm leaning in, like I'm all ears for anything you're
no,
saying.
you girls are hyping me up today and I love it. So I think like So I was gonna tell you a story about like the first story that truly went viral, which was about like a threat on a Pokemon event. But it wasn't really exciting to me at the time. It was exciting that I got on front page, but that was about all that was exciting about it. So I think one big tip is like, do you feel excited about sharing this story? I felt really excited to share that pieing in the face story with you because I love to talk about that. So that, I think, served the purpose of this conversation way better than me saying like, well, I called the state police and then da, 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 da. That was more like maybe like literally impactful in the world, right? Like I reported on a bomb scare that everybody was fine. Again, the threat was dissolved. There was no threat. But anyway, me telling that story, even now, I'm like, I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm not excited about it. You guys don't seem excited about it. So it's like that versus the story of the pieing in the face. I remember every detail because it was like a pivotal moment for me. So like really tapping into like your own emotions before you share a story to be like, is this the one or is this the one? I think that's a big thing. Using details like the fact that I interviewed my Spanish teacher about her bra. I always remember that because I just thought that was hysterical as a teenager and as an adult, that was like why it took such a dark turn for these students, is because they had, messed up like Senora Campbell's bra. I was like, why is this? Like, it was funny at first and then it wasn't because of whatever. So things like that, those like little tiny, like weird details that people are like, what? And again, it like you insert your own details or your own high school experience from there. So I say my high school Spanish teacher, and I'm sure like somebody else is thinking about what would happen if this happened in their own high school. And then I think again, going back to the tip of like people don't think things are interesting. Like if you believe that it's interesting, the story that you're telling, the people you're telling it to are going to believe that as well, and they're going to be hooked in with you. So like bringing that level of excitement and being like, hey, like you need to hear this story because of X, Y, and Z reason, and like really feeling that in your body. These are all like more, I would say, somatic tips. I'll give like a more like practical tip is, so with my framework, I like to start people with something that I call an F-it moment, which is when you take a radically different path. So for me, one of my F-it moments was leaving journalism, but you can take it on a smaller scale. So in that pieing in the face story, right? So my F-it moment was we had a different paper like in the bank, and then I was like, F it, I'm gonna go and pursue this big story. And that like sort of like bucking the establishment, I think really, even though it was like my high school journalism teacher, I think really speaks to people and like gets them in their feelings. And it also allows the storyteller to really tap into the empowerment of that moment of saying no and going off and doing their own thing. So that is something that I always focus on. So if you can think of like moments in your life where you were at a crossroads and you chose to do things differently, I think those always make a great story, even if it's like parking in a spot that's different at the grocery store. Like your motivations behind all of those things are interesting.
So cool. I'm like
Thank you.
taking notes, but in my mind. Yeah, this is so cool. I love the way that you break it down. You do such a good job. I know that we're likely gonna collaborate in so many different ways
Oh,
in the future.
absolutely.
There's so much synergy here. So let's wrap things up, but I need to know two things. What are your astrology signs and where can people find you?
Yeah, like we need
Okay.
to know.
Okay, we're gonna have to do a round robin of astrology, but I am a Scorpio sun, a Scorpio rising, and a Capricorn moon. So double Scorpio. And people can find me on Instagram at Jack Temp. So it's JACKTEMP. And on my website, which is jackietempera.com.
So cool. I can like all the Scorpio. I feel like that's your ability to go so deep with people, right?
Yeah, I
Like
think
pierce through it. Yeah. So
I'm a
perfect.
Scorpio. Don't worry about it.
So amazing. Well, we've just been so grateful to have you here today. What a just beautiful kind of kismet conversation that we've had. You are an incredible storyteller. I Yeah, so, so grateful that you've been on the show today, Jackie.
Thank you, ladies, so much. I really appreciate this opportunity, and I'm so excited to meet you in person sometime very, very soon.
Yes, we'll figure something out for sure. It's
Yeah.
needed.
Thank you guys so much for watching another episode of Visibility Era. See you next week.